No one claimed the virgin bride at the station until a mountain man said, "She's enough." "Ma'am, you okay? You've been standing here since the train left." The old station guard's voice was gentle but cautious, like he was afraid the wrong word might break her. The girl didn't look up. She just kept staring at the empty tracks, her hands gripping a small brown suitcase like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her white wedding dress, once pure and pressed, was now wrinkled, the hem stained with dust. "I'm fine," she whispered. "You waiting on somebody?" the guard asked, shifting his cap. She nodded slowly. "He said he'd come. He promised." Her voice cracked on the last word. The guard sighed, glancing around the quiet platform. "Ain't nobody left, sweetheart. Train's been gone near an hour." Still, she didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the horizon, where the tracks disappeared into fog. Somewhere beyond that fog, she believed love was still coming for her. Two teenage boys nearby snickered, pointing at her dress. "Hey, lady," one called. "Your husband missed the train, or you scare him off before he got here?" The other laughed so hard he nearly dropped his sandwich. The girl flinched but didn't answer. She just turned away, biting her lip hard enough to taste blood. The guard snapped, "You boys better run on home before I make you clean this whole platform." They ran off laughing anyway. The girl, Lily Grace, sank onto the bench, her veil slipping off her shoulder. She opened her suitcase and pulled out a letter. It was worn and smudged from being read too many times. Her eyes traced the same words she had memorized. "I'll be waiting under the clock tower. You'll see me first, my bride. Forever, Daniel." Her lips trembled as she whispered. "You said forever." The wind blew, carrying the sound of her voice away like a secret no one wanted, and then a voice behind her. Deep, calm, rough around the edges. "You the bride everyone's whispering about?" Lily turned sharply. A tall man stood a few feet away. Broad shoulders, rough beard, mountain coat. He looked like he belonged to the earth itself. Silent, strong, unshaken. "Who are you?" she asked, clutching her suitcase tighter. "Jack Hunter," he said simply. "Live up in the hills. Came down for feed." He paused, scanning her from head to toe. "But looks like I found something else. A girl about to break in half." Her chin lifted, defiant. "I'm not broken. I'm waiting. For a man who left you standing in a wedding dress." Her breath caught. "You don't know him." Jack's eyes softened, but his voice stayed low. "I don't need to. A man who loves you, don't let the train leave without him." Silence. Just the wind and the echo of a train that was long gone. "I don't need help," she whispered. He nodded once. "Good, I wasn't offering help. I was offering warmth." Big difference. He started walking away, then turned back. "You got two choices, miss. Wait here till the cold takes you, or come where there's a fire." She looked at him, this stranger with kindness in his eyes and dirt on his boots, and something in her broke. Not her strength, but her pride. Slowly, she stood up. "You don't even know my name." "Don't need to," he said quietly. "You're human. That's enough." And as the fog swallowed the platform, the abandoned bride picked up her suitcase and followed the mountain man into the mist. Her white dress trailed behind her, like a fading promise. The road up the mountain was rough. Rocks, crunching beneath every step, the air cold enough to bite. Lily's shoes were soaked, her hands trembling, but she kept walking. The man ahead, Jack, didn't talk much. He carried a lantern, its soft glow cutting through the fog like a thread of safety she didn't want to lose. After a while, she whispered, "How much farther?" Jack didn't turn. "A mile or so." "You'll make it." She tried to smile, but her voice cracked. "You say that like you already know me," he grunted. "I know the kind of people who keep walking when they're already broken." "You got that look." Lily's throat tightened. She wanted to snap back, to hide behind pride, but she couldn't. He was right. Every step she took hurt, but stopping felt worse. They reached a bend where the trees opened up to a view of the valley below. The lights of the town shimmered faintly through the mist. Lily turned to look, her eyes glassy. "I thought I'd be starting a new life down there," she murmured. "Married, safe, loved." Jack's voice came low, rough but kind. "You can't build forever on someone who runs." She looked at him, his rugged face half lit by lantern light, and for the first time, she didn't see a stranger. She saw a man who'd known loss. When they finally reached his cabin, it looked small and lonely against the vast dark of the hills, but warm light flickered from the windows. Smoke curled from the chimney. Jack pushed open the door. "Go on in." "Don't mind the mess." Lily stepped inside, her eyes widening. The cabin smelled like pine wood and coffee. A small fire crackled in the stone hearth, and two worn chairs sat close together, their fabric faded but clean. She stood still, unsure. "You live here alone?" "Used to live with my brother," he said, hanging his coat. "He passed 2 winters back." She lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry," he shrugged. "Life don't ask permission to take what it wants." Lily nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'm starting to learn that." Jack poured her a cup of warm tea and handed it to her without a word. She hesitated before taking it, her fingers brushing his just for a second. "Thank you," she whispered. He sat across from her, arms crossed, eyes studying her quietly. "So what's a girl like you doing marrying a man from these hills? Ain't exactly where city folks find their happy ever after." Lily stared at the fire. "Daniel wasn't from here. He just said he wanted to start a life away from the noise. He wrote me letters for months, said he loved my quiet, my faith, my innocence." Her voice cracked again on that last word. Jack looked into the fire, jaw tightening. Men who talk too pretty often mean too little. A tear slipped down her cheek. "I guess I was just something to make him feel like a good man." Jack didn't answer. He just reached for another log and placed it on the fire, the crackle filling the silence. Finally, he said softly, "Ain't your fault he was weak?" Lily looked up, eyes glistening. "Then why do I feel like I'm the one who did something wrong?" Jack met her gaze, steady, calm. "'Cause good hearts always blame themselves first." For a long while, they sat in silence, two strangers bound by pain, listening to the fire whisper between them. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, but inside that small cabin, the world finally felt still, and for the first time since the train station, Lily didn't feel completely alone. The next morning, the mountains were wrapped in silver mist. The cabin smelled of coffee and wood smoke. Lily sat near the fire, staring at the flames as if they were trying to tell her what came next. Jack moved quietly around the small kitchen, pouring hot coffee into 2 old tin mugs. He didn't ask questions. He didn't offer sympathy. And maybe that was why she trusted him more than anyone she'd met. "Did you sleep?" he asked, his voice deep and rough from the cold. Lily nodded. "A little. I kept hearing the wind. Thought it was a train coming." Jack handed her the mug, sitting across from her. "Ain't no trains up here. Just the mountain talkin'." She took a sip and winced. It was strong and bitter, but it warmed her chest. "You live up here all alone? Don't you get lonely?" He gave a small, humorless smile. "Lonely's quieter than fake company." That hit her like a truth she didn't want to face. She nodded slowly, clutching the mug tighter. Jack leaned back in his chair, watching her quietly. "So what you gonna do now, Lily Grace?" Her name and his voice sounded different, softer, heavier somehow. She stared out the window. "I don't know. I sold everything back home to come here. I don't even have a place to go back to." Jack said nothing for a long time. The silence was gentle, not cold. Then he spoke, almost to himself. "Sometimes losing everything is the only way you find what matters." Lily looked up. "You sound like you learned that the hard way." His jaw tightened. He stared into the fire. "I did." She hesitated. "What happened?" Jack's eyes stayed fixed on the flames, the light flickering across his face. "Had someone once. Thought I was going to marry her. But she wanted more than a cabin and a man who worked with his hands. Said she was tired of simple." "What did you do?" Lily asked softly. He looked down at his calloused hands. "Let her go. Couldn't give her what she thought she needed. Turns out, she didn't need me either." The fire popped loudly between them. Lily's throat felt tight. She whispered, "I'm sorry." Jack shrugged, but his voice cracked just a little. "Don't be. Sometimes the ones who leave just make room for something truer. They sat in silence for a while. The only sound was the wind pressing against the cabin walls, the faint crackle of the fire. Finally, Lily said, "Maybe God put us both here 'cause we were tired of being left." Jack looked at her then, really looked. And for the first time, she saw the grief behind his calm eyes, the kind that doesn't fade but learns to live quietly inside. "Maybe," he said softly. "Or maybe he just wanted you somewhere safe till your heart remembers how to breathe." Lily smiled faintly, tears shining. "You talk like a preacher," he chuckled. "Nah, just a man who's done enough wrong to know what right looks like." Their eyes met, and in that quiet moment, something shifted. Not love, not yet, but a strange kind of peace. Two broken souls recognizing each other. Then, from outside, a sound. The distant echo of a horse's hooves cutting through the still morning air. Jack frowned, standing up. "Ain't nobody supposed to come up this trail." Lily's heart skipped. Who could it be? Jack grabbed his coat, his voice suddenly sharp. "Stay here." Lily froze as he stepped out the door into the mist. Through the crack of the window, she watched his shadow move toward the sound. The mountains seemed to hold their breath, and then a voice called out from the fog. "Jack Hunter, you got company, and it ain't the kind that brings flowers." Lily's blood went cold. The wind outside howled like the mountain itself was warning them. Lily stood near the window, hands clutching her skirt, heart hammering against her ribs. She could see nothing but mist, thick, endless, and Jack's shadow moving slow, cautious. Then another shape appeared. A man on horseback, tall and mean-looking, his coat flapping like wings. He pulled the reins hard and stopped in front of the cabin. "Jack Hunter!" The man barked, his voice echoing through the cold. "You got something that don't belong to you." Jack's tone was calm but sharp. "Don't know what you mean, Mason," Lily's breath caught. He knew him. The man dismounted, boots crunching against the gravel. "Don't play dumb." Word reached town. A runaway bride showed up on the train last night. Folks said a mountain man picked her up. "That you?" Jack's jaw tightened. "She wasn't runaway. She was left." Mason laughed, cruel and loud. "Well, ain't that something? Poor little bride gets stood up, and the first man she meets happens to be you. Guess you always did have a thing for fixin' broken things, huh?" Lily flinched. Jack's fists clenched at his sides. "Watch your mouth," Jack warned, but Mason wasn't done. He turned toward the cabin, raising his voice. "You hear me in there, miss? You don't know who you're trustin'. This man ain't no saint. He's trouble. Always has been." Lily froze, her hand on the door. Jack stepped forward, his tone low and dangerous. "You come here to stir dirt, Mason, or you come here for a reason?" Mason smirked. "Maybe both. See, that girl's fiancé, Daniel Reed, he's in town right now, and he's telling folks you kidnapped his bride." Lily's eyes widened. Her breath caught in her throat. Jack's voice dropped. "He said what?" Mason chuckled. "That's right. Says you lured her off the platform. Says you're some wild man who took her against her will." Jack's face went pale with anger. "That's a lie." "Maybe," Mason said, shrugging. "But in town, lies spread faster than fire. And the sheriff's riding up here tomorrow to check it out." Lily's knees weakened. "No, he can't." Jack turned to her, his voice softer. "Don't you worry. I'll handle this." But she shook her head, her voice trembling. "You shouldn't have to. You only helped me because you're kind. I can go down and explain." Jack stepped closer, eyes firm. "And what? Walk into a town full of men who'll call you a liar? Who'll say you made it all up? No, Lily, you've been humiliated enough." Mason smirked, enjoying the moment. "Careful, Hunter. Wouldn't want your cabin burned down for stealing another man's woman." Jack's jaw flexed. He took a step forward. "You tell Daniel Reed if he wants to talk, he can climb this mountain himself. But if he sends men, I'll meet him halfway." Mason's smirk faded. He backed toward his horse. "You always were good with threats." Jack's tone went cold. "Not threats, promises." Mason mounted up, spitting into the dirt. "You better be ready, Jack. This ain't over." He rode off into the fog, his laughter echoing down the trail. Jack stood still for a long time, watching until the sound disappeared. Then he turned back to the cabin. Lily stood in the doorway, shaking. "He's going to bring the sheriff, isn't he?" Jack nodded once. "Yeah, and you're Daniel, too." Her voice broke. "Why is he doing this?" Jack's eyes darkened. "Because cowards don't like witnesses to their sins." Lily's tears spilled over. "I ruined your peace." Jack stepped closer, his voice deep, steady, protective. "You didn't ruin it, Lily. You gave it purpose." The fire inside flickered brighter as he said it, like the cabin itself was listening. But outside, the mountain air grew colder, and both of them knew, before sunrise, their quiet world would never be the same again. The next dawn came gray and cold. The mountain air carried the echo of hooves long before they appeared. Inside the cabin, Lily sat at the table, her hands wrapped tight around a cup of coffee she wasn't drinking. Jack stood by the door, hat in hand, staring into the distance as if he could stop the day from coming. "You should hide," he said quietly. Lily shook her head. "I've had enough of hiding. Sheriff's not here for truth," Jack muttered. "He's here for peace in town. And peace usually favors whoever's richer." Lily looked at him, voice trembling. "Then let me speak. I can explain." Jack's eyes met hers. "You don't understand how men like Daniel work. They lie soft and folks listen loud." Before she could answer, the sound of hooves grew louder. 4 riders this time. Dust rose like a storm behind them. The sheriff led, his badge glinting in the morning light. Behind him rode Daniel Reed, dressed neat, smiling as if he hadn't shattered someone's heart. When they reached the cabin, Daniel jumped down first. "There she is!" he shouted, pointing at Lily through the open door. "That's my fiancée, the one this man stole." Lily flinched but didn't step back. Jack moved slightly in front of her, his body blocking the doorway. "Morning, Sheriff," Jack said calmly. "You've come a long way for a lie." The sheriff, a heavy man with kind eyes dulled by duty, held up a hand. "Easy now, Jack. Daniel here says you took his bride off the train last night." "She wasn't taken," Jack said. "She was left." Lily's voice broke the silence. "He's telling the truth." Daniel's face twisted. "Lily, sweetheart, you were confused. The train was late. I went to the next stop." "Stop lying," she cried. Her voice cracked but carried strong. "You left me there. You watched the train pull away. You said you'd meet me under the clock tower, but you never came." The men went silent. Daniel stepped closer, his charm slipping. "You're hysterical. You don't know what you're saying." Jack moved between them, his voice low and dangerous. "You take another step, Reed, and I swear—" "Jack," the sheriff interrupted sharply, "stand down." No need to start trouble. Jack's voice was steady. Trouble already started when he left her to be laughed at by a whole town. The sheriff's eyes shifted uneasily between them. Daniel forced a laugh. "She's confused. She's always been emotional. Enough!" Lily's shout cut through the mountain air. Her eyes burned, her hands shaking. "You wrote me letters, Daniel. You made promises. I sold everything I had because I believed you loved me." Her voice cracked. "But the truth is, you were never coming, were you?" Daniel's mask finally slipped. "You were supposed to bring money. You didn't. What was I supposed to do? Marry a beggar?" The sheriff's head jerked up, shock flickering in his eyes. Jack's fists clenched. "You used her," Daniel smirked. "And what? You want her now? She's yours, Mountain Man. Take my leftovers. That did it." Jack moved fast. 1 step, 1 punch. Daniel hit the ground before the sheriff could blink. Blood streaked the snow. The sheriff shouted, "Jack, enough!" But Jack stood over Daniel, voice shaking with controlled fury. "That woman's worth 10 of you, Reed. You threw away the only thing that could have made you a man." The sheriff stepped forward, holding up a hand. "That's enough now. I think I've heard the truth loud and clear." Daniel struggled to his feet, wiping his mouth. "You can't just let him—" "Quiet!" the sheriff snapped. "You made your own bed." He turned to Lily, his tone gentler. "Ma'am, if you want to press charges, I'll make it happen." Lily shook her head slowly. "No, I don't need the law to tell him what he lost." The sheriff nodded, understanding, and turned his horse. Then this matter's done. As they rode off, Daniel glared back one last time, hatred and regret twisted together, before disappearing down the trail. The wind blew through the pines, and for the first time in days, the mountain was quiet again. Jack turned to Lily, his voice softer than ever. "You didn't have to protect me." She looked up at him, eyes wet but steady. "I wasn't. I was protecting the truth." He held her gaze a moment longer, then smiled faintly. "Guess that makes us both guilty of the same crime." "What crime?" she whispered, still believing there's good left in people. The fire crackled inside the cabin as they walked back together, not as strangers anymore, but as two souls who'd survived a storm the world tried to bury them in. That night, the wind outside howled like a wounded beast, but inside the cabin, there was peace. Lily sat by the fire, wrapped in a thick blanket Jack had handed her. The flames danced across her face, softening the shadows that heartbreak had carved there. She looked exhausted, but for the first time in days, she wasn't afraid. Jack sat in the other chair, sharpening his old hunting knife, his movements slow and steady. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to. His silence carried more comfort than most people's words. Finally, Lily broke it. "You didn't have to hit him," she said quietly. Jack didn't look up. "You're right." He paused, then added, "But I wanted to." A small laugh slipped out of her, the first in what felt like forever. "You're not a gentle man, are you, Jack?" He smiled faintly. "Not with men like him, but I try to be with everything else." The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was warm, like the pause before a kind truth. Lily looked at the fire. "I thought when I came here, I was starting a life full of love. I didn't realize I was just running from being lonely." Jack set the knife down and leaned forward. "Maybe loneliness isn't something you run from. Maybe it's something you face, until it stops scaring you." She studied him. "You talk like someone who's lived 1,000 years." He chuckled softly. "Feels like it some days." Then, for a long moment, neither spoke. The fire cracked and snow began falling outside the window. Soft, endless, quiet. Finally, Lily whispered, "Thank you. For not giving up on me." Jack turned toward her. "Didn't do it for thanks. Then why?" she asked. He met her eyes. "Because nobody deserves to be left standing at a train station in a wedding dress." Her lips trembled. "You make it sound like I'm worth something." He looked at her, really looked, and said softly, "You are." The words hung between them, heavy with truth. Lily blinked, tears spilling before she could stop them. "You don't even know me," Jack smiled gently. "I know enough. I know the way you hold your hands when you're scared. I know you cry quiet so nobody hears. And I know you still say please and thank you even when the world's been cruel. That's enough for me." Lily covered her face, her voice breaking. "Nobody ever saw me like that." He leaned closer, his tone soft. "Then they weren't looking right." She dropped her hands and looked at him, and in that gaze, something shifted. The pain between them turned into something raw, fragile, and beautiful. Jack stood slowly, placing another log in the fire. "You don't owe me nothing, Lily. You can leave when you're ready." Her voice came small. "And if I don't want to?" He froze for just a second, then looked over his shoulder. "Then I'll make sure you got a reason to stay." The firelight glowed against their faces. Two souls scarred by love, finally finding warmth in the ashes. Outside, the snow fell heavier, wrapping the cabin in white silence. Inside, something deeper than love began to grow. Quiet, patient, real. Snow kept falling all night, soft as dust and endless as silence. By morning, the cabin was buried halfway up its windows. Jack was already outside, shoveling a path to the barn, his breath rising in clouds. Inside, Lily sat by the fire, wrapped in one of his coats, staring out the frosted glass. She'd slept better than she had in weeks, yet something inside her still trembled. Not fear. Something heavier, like the ache of remembering. When she opened the door, the cold slapped her face, sharp and clean. Jack looked up, shovel in hand. You shouldn't be out here. She smiled faintly. I just wanted to see the morning. He set the shovel aside, watching her. Careful. This mountain looks peaceful till it turns on you. Lily laughed softly. You talk like it's alive. He nodded toward the trees. It is. Everything up here is. You just gotta listen. She stepped forward, her boots crunching in the snow. The world was silent. No trains, no crowds, just the wind whispering through pine. Then something caught her eye. A small shape half buried near the fence. What's that? She asked, walking toward it. Jack frowned. Don't touch! But she was already kneeling, brushing snow away with her gloved hands. Underneath was an envelope, its edges stiff with ice, her name written in fading ink. Lily Grace. Her breath stopped. It's his handwriting. Jack knelt beside her, his jaw tight. Daniel? She nodded slowly, trembling. How did this get here? Jack took the letter gently, studying the seal. Could have dropped it the night he came. Maybe Mason left it. Maybe he wanted you to find it. Lily's hands shook as she opened it. The paper inside was wrinkled and stained, but the words were still there, and they hit like stones. Lily, I never meant to hurt you. I thought I could love you, but I couldn't live that life. I needed more. You were too pure, too quiet, too simple. Don't come looking for me. You deserve someone stronger. Her eyes blurred. The snow around her seemed to glow white-hot with shame and grief. Too pure, she whispered. Too quiet. Jack's voice was low but fierce. No, Lily. He wrote that because he couldn't face what he broke. That letter ain't truth. It's guilt trying to sound wise. She looked up at him, tears streaking down her face. Then why does it still hurt so much? Jack's gaze softened. 'Cause you loved honest. The ones who love honest always hurt harder. She swallowed, her lip trembling. I gave him everything I had. Jack nodded slowly. Then give what's left to yourself. She stared at him, eyes full of questions, of something growing she couldn't yet name. And what about you, Jack Hunter? Who do you give what's left of you to? For a moment he said nothing. Then he looked out over the snow, voice low. Maybe I've been waiting for someone who knows what broken feels like, and still chooses to heal anyway. Lily's heart thudded. The wind whistled through the trees like a quiet song. She folded the letter carefully and placed it on the fence post. Then I guess we both stop waiting. Jack turned to her, the mountain behind him. The firelight flickering from the cabin window, her white dress peeking from under his coat, and for the first time he smiled. Not just with his mouth, but with his eyes. Snowflakes landed on their faces, melting slowly. One on her cheek, one on his beard. The world was quiet again, but it wasn't empty anymore. The snow outside finally stopped. The morning light spilled through the cabin windows. Soft, golden, alive. The mountains shimmered under their white blanket like they were washed clean, ready to begin again. Inside, the fire burned low, quiet but steady, just like the two hearts sitting near it. Lily stood by the window, her hair loose, wearing one of Jack's flannel shirts. Her wedding dress hung by the door, no longer a symbol of what she'd lost, but what she'd outgrown. She stared out at the valley below, where the road wound down into the fog. Somewhere out there, Daniel Reed was gone for good, swallowed by the same emptiness he'd once left her in. Jack walked in from outside, snow on his boots and a basket of wood in his arms. You should eat something, he said gently. You'll need your strength when spring comes. Lily smiled faintly. You talk like you think I'll still be here by spring. He looked up, met her eyes, and didn't look away. I do. For a moment, neither moved. The silence stretched between them. Not the kind that hurts, but the kind that holds. She broke it softly. You know, a few weeks ago, I was waiting at that train station thinking my life was over. I thought being loved was the only way to be worth something. But I was wrong. Jack set down the basket. You weren't wrong to want love, Lily. You were just giving it to the wrong man. Her throat tightened. And what about you, Jack Hunter? What do you want? He smiled, a quiet, almost shy kind of smile that didn't fit his rough face. Peace, maybe someone to share it with. Her eyes softened. Someone who talks too much? He chuckled. Maybe someone who listens just right. They both laughed. Not loud, Not forced, just the kind of laugh that lets the soul breathe again. Then, Jack reached into his coat pocket and pulled something out. A small silver locket. "Found this in town last week," he said quietly. "Was going to give it to you when you were ready." Lily opened it. Inside was a tiny pressed flower. Wild lavender. Her eyes filled instantly. "Why?" He looked down, voice deep, almost nervous. "Because it grows where nothing else does. Thought it kind of reminded me of you." Tears welled, but this time they were warm. She reached out, touching his rough hand. "Jack, nobody's ever looked at me like I was something to keep." He met her gaze, his voice low and raw. "That's because you were always looking for people who didn't deserve to." The air between them grew still. The fire popped softly, the smell of pine filling the room. Lily took a slow step forward. "And you?" she whispered. "Do you think you deserve me?" Jack swallowed hard. "I don't know if I deserve you, Lily Grace, but I'd spend the rest of my life trying to." The words hung in the air, trembling. True. She smiled through her tears. "Then I guess this time, I'm not waiting at any train station." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. The world outside faded. Just her heartbeat. Just his breath. Just the warmth that had been waiting for both of them all along. They stood there in the quiet cabin. Two souls no longer lost, no longer waiting to be chosen, because they had finally chosen themselves. Later that spring, folks in town would whisper stories about the mountain man who married the bride no one claimed, about how she walked back down that hill one day, head held high, not as a victim, but as a woman reborn. And outside the cabin, carved into a piece of oak, was a single phrase that said it all. She was never abandoned. She was found. As the wind swept across the mountain and the sun sank behind the peaks, Jack and Lily stood hand in hand, watching the light fade. Their scars still there, but glowing now, not as wounds, but as proof that even the broken can bloom again. The end. Morale. Sometimes the love you're waiting for isn't someone who comes to claim you. It's someone who helps you remember your own worth. Real love doesn't rescue you. It meets you in your ruins and builds home there.